The first sound was breathing, not their own, someone else's, shallow and wet, filling the silence between mechanical hums. A fluorescent light stuttered to life above a cold, metal table, its flicker cut through the darkness like a knife. The reagent's eyes fluttered open, the ceiling above them was yellowed and cracked, the air thick with antiseptic and blood. Straps dug into their wrists, their body trembled against the table. Subject is conscious, a voice said, clipped, professional, almost bored. Figures in surgical masks leaned over them, faces hidden behind fogged goggles. They spoke in medical jargon, but their tone was more like mechanics discussing a machine. One held a syringe, the other adjusted a camera mounted above the table. Screams echoed down the corridor. Not the kind born from pain but from realization. Through a glass window, the reagent saw silhouettes, doctors tearing open torsos, pulling wires and tubes from the still, twitching dead. A nurse laughed. The sound didn't belong here, too human, too warm in this cold place. Then she entered. The female surgeon, white coat splattered red. She wheeled in a small television cart and clicked it on. The screen flickered static, resolving into a man in a crisp suit, smiling with the calm of a prophet. Dr. Hendrik Joliet Easterman. Good evening, my patient. My name is Dr. Easterman, and I am here to help you become whole again. Murkoff sees your potential, even when you cannot. The surgeon looked down at the reagent and smiled, a maternal imitation. Without warning, she jabbed a needle into their arm. The world swam, vision tunneled. Another voice, deeper, commanding, filled the room. The male surgeon. Sign here, he said, pressing a clipboard to their chest. His gloved hand guided theirs, forcing a trembling signature. Consent, that's all we need. They couldn't speak, their mouth filled with cotton and bile. Then came the drill. A whine, a flash of silver, a clamp against the skull. The vibration traveled through bone deeper, until pain became light-blinding, eternal. When the world returned, the reagent's eyes glowed. The night vision goggles were no longer equipment, they were organs. Screwed into flesh. They woke again in a place that pretended to be home, a mansion elegant, decayed. Chandeliers hung like dead stars above halls, lined with portraits of people who watched too closely. Somewhere, music played from a broken record, looping a single, warped piano note. From an old television in the corner, Easterman spoke once more. His smile never wavered. Welcome, my dear patient. You are special. You are chosen. All you must do is let go. Images of the reagent's past life flickered across the wall's faces. A home, a memory of sunlight. Then, static, gone. They moved through the mansion's corridors, guided by whispers, chased by shadows that wore human shapes. A sound of laughter high and broken heralded Mother Gooseberry. She drifted into view, her porcelain mask cracked, her smile eternal. The reagent hid, breath shallow, watching her drag a cleaver across the floor, singing to something that wasn't there. Then came the whispering clicks of the Skinner man, unseen, but everywhere a monster born from every repressed fear the reagent tried to forget. Each encounter stripped something away, memory, identity, humanity, until only instinct remained. By the time they reached the sleep room, they were no longer who they were. The reagent stood before a mirror. Their reflection blinked a second too late. Easterman's voice echoed again, not from the TV, but from inside their head. You have done well. You are learning to destroy the self. Only then can we rebuild you. Sleep now, my child. The next trial awaits. As the reagent lay down among rows of others, all breathing in the same rhythm, all dreaming the same night, ere the lights dimmed. And somewhere beyond the walls, drills began again. The loudspeaker crackled to life. Easterman's voice slithered through the corridors, calm, instructive, like a sermon. You must silence the liar. The snitch endangers the truth. Take him to the chamber and make him pure. The reagent stood in the shadow of a police station, its walls blackened with soot, its insignia long corroded. Rusted sirens blinked in the rain like dying eyes. Somewhere inside, a man screamed for mercy, the one they called the snitch. The reagent entered through a shattered doorway, breath shallow. The air inside stank of ozone and rot, the remnants of Murkoff's correctional therapy. Behind a flickering security monitor, Easterman's recorded face stared out. Your task is simple. The liar must be silenced. The reagent pressed the glowing button on the console. A hydraulic groan echoed through the halls, and somewhere deep inside, a heavy cell door slid open. A cutscene of reality unfolded before their eyes. The snitch lay in a cage, trembling. His skin was paper, thin, his mouth gagged with medical tape scribbled with words. Truth lies, truth lies. When the reagent approached, he recoiled, whispering through the tape, "They are lying to you. We're all liars here." The reagent's hand moved on its own. They shoved him forward, and the lights died. Darkness swallowed everything. The hum of electricity ceased. The world fell silent, save for the sound of rain tapping the station's windows. Then came the whispers. The generators had stopped. The reagent's vision flared green, the night vision lens. It seared their skull, turning the dark into a world of spectral shapes. They moved through corridors lined with cells, each one filled with experiments that had forgotten their purpose. Some begged, some giggled, some sang hymns to Murkoff. The task was clear: restore the power. The reagent slipped into the garage, where shadows dripped from the ceiling. 3 heavy metal doors stood locked, each one marked with the same hand-painted word: obey, keys. They needed keys. And the only place Murkoff ever hid anything was inside its failures. The reagent searched the corpses. Cold hands, torn stomachs. One by one, they retrieved the keys glistening with blood and oil. Each door groaned open, releasing the smell of burnt flesh and diesel. The reagent pulled the generator switch. The lights stuttered, then screamed back to life. The snitch was still alive, crawling forward, muttering prayers to no god that would listen. Easterman's voice guided the reagent through the intercom. Good, good, bring him to judgment. They pushed the snitch's chair down the hallway, wheels squealing against the tile. The man begged, "Please, I told them the truth." Murkoff's lying, it's all a static burst cut him off. The execution chamber loomed ahead, a massive chair wired to the ceiling, copper plates glistening with condensation. The reagent strapped him in. Their hands trembled, but not from pity, from conditioning. Easterman's voice whispered again, softer now, intimate. "You are doing God's work. Silence the false prophet." They pulled the switch. The room ignited with white light. The snitch convulsed, his scream turning into a mechanical shriek as electricity danced across his body. The smell of burning hair filled the air, then chaos. A door slammed open. Leland Coyle burst through, eyes wide, body twitching from old voltage scars. His voice was a broken hymn. "Murderers, you can't kill the truth." He charged, smashing through walls, tearing at cables. The reagent stumbled backward, heart pounding, as the snitch went, still smoke rising from the chair. The alarms began to wail. "The trial is complete." Easterman's voice cooed over the intercom. "You have done beautifully, my child." The reagent turned away from the corpse, the goggles still humming softly against their skin. They followed the path back through the police station, past the corpses, past the blood, until they reached the shuttle bay. A transport door opened, bathed in sterile white light. The reagent stepped inside. The door closed. For a moment, silence. Then Easterman's voice once more, now gentle, paternal. "Rest, little one. Tomorrow brings a new lesson." The shuttle rumbled forward into the dark. Somewhere behind them, the snitch still smoked in his chair, a monument to obedience. And the reagent dreamed again of freedom, not knowing they were already inside their own cage. The shuttle doors opened with a hiss of steam. The reagent stepped into the courtyard of an orphanage that no longer belonged to the living. The sign above the archway read St. Dymphna's Home for Lost Children, though half the letters had fallen away, leaving only St. Dymphna. Rain traced black veins down the walls. The faint echo of children's laughter drifted from somewhere inside, warped, looping, recorded long ago. A speaker on, the gate buzzed to life. Easterman's voice again, gentle, clinical. "Today's lesson is faith. Teach the children their place in the world. Lead them to obedience, and we shall call it love." The gate unlocked. The reagent entered. Inside, the smell was unbearable: mold, perfume, and something metallic. Wallpaper peeled like dead skin. Tiny shoes were lined neatly along the hallway walls. as though their owners might return at any moment. Up the grand staircase, a flickering sign read "Broadcast Room." The reagent followed it. Static pulsed from behind the door. When they entered, they found a control station walls plastered with holy slogans and the smiling face of Mother Gooseberry, captured in hundreds of photographs. A cracked frequency box sat on the console, its wires severed. The reagent set to work, twisting knobs and rerouting cables, the sound of static slowly resolving into Easterman's voice, then Gooseberry's her tone song, almost maternal. "Oh, my children, can you hear me? Let's make today special. Faith makes it manifest." As the frequency box came online, glowing red dots appeared on a broadcast map, the remaining transmitters scattered throughout the orphanage. The reagent descended into the dorm halls, searching. Doors creaked open on their own. Mannequins of children sat at desks, their heads tilted toward invisible teachers. Somewhere nearby, a lullaby began to play. Mother Gooseberry was roaming. The reagent froze, crouched beneath a bunk as the porcelain-faced woman drifted past, humming the melody of a hymn that didn't exist. Her laughter followed her like perfume. The reagent held their breath until she was gone. With each frequency box repaired, the orphanage grew louder voices of children reciting catechisms in unison. Obedience is faith, faith is love, love is death. When the last broadcast flickered life, the reagent made their way to the front desk, hopped the counter, and pressed the button switch. The barred gate to the classrooms unlocked with a heavy clang. Inside, the smell of dust and old film filled the air. Projectors rattled softly, casting reels of smiling children taking communion, smiling parents, smiling doctors. In the film reel room, a small trade window connected to the hall. Reels marked Lesson 1, Sacrifice, Lesson 2, Purity, and Lesson 3, Faith waited on a blood-stained counter. The reagent passed them through, one by one, exchanging them for corrupted reels to load into the projectors. Each new film warped the children's smiles into screams, the reels themselves weeping crimson tears. When the last projector finished, the loudspeaker clicked again. "Excellent work, my pupil. The children are learning well. Now, it's time for communion." The reagent returned to the lobby and pressed the switch once more. The chapel gate opened. The chapel was decorated for celebration. Streamers hung from rafters. Balloons floated against the stained glass. The pews were filled with child mannequins, all swaying to a warped 1950s tune. At the far end, a jukebox glowed in soft pink light, spinning a cracked vinyl record. The reagent approached, pressed its buttons. Nothing, only one option left. They smashed the glass. The music stopped. All at once, every mannequin turned its head. A spotlight flared, illuminating a long table draped in white. The curtain above it fell away to reveal a man nailed to a wooden cross, suspended by cables. His mouth was sewn shut. Above him, a sign read, "Jesus lives here." Two projector screens crackled to life, flashing symbols keys, hidden somewhere below. Easterman's voice whispered through static, "Find the keys, restore the power, give him his communion." The reagent descended into the orphanage, his underbelly. The air grew hot, electric. Two generators waited in the dark, their wires tangled like veins. Each pull of a lever roared like thunder, sending life back into the building above. With the final spark, the hymn resumed louder, distorted. Mother Gooseberry's laughter echoed through the vents. "Come, children, the party's ready." The reagent returned to the chapel. The cross now buzzed with current, the saw humming beside it. They approached. Hands trembling, they took the saw and pressed it against the Messiah's legs. Flesh tore, blood spattered across the altar. The reagent didn't look away. They couldn't. When the task was done, the button switch beside the altar glowed red. It required everyone's hand, every surviving reagent's touch. They pressed it together, the chapel sealed. The lights died, then blood rained from the ceiling. It poured over the child mannequins, who began to cheer, shrill, mechanical laughter echoing through the hall. Their hands clapped in perfect rhythm. Mother Gooseberry's voice screamed over the intercom, "Naughty children. You ruined my party." The chapel doors burst open. Gooseberry stepped through, her mask cracked, cleaver dripping red. The reagent ran, through the pews, through the smoke, past the hulking big grunt guarding the entrance. His roar shook the glass. They dove past him, through the main hole into the open air. The shuttle awaited, humming like a promise. They climbed aboard as the orphanage burned behind them, the laughter still echoing in their ears, the doors sealed. Easterman's voice returned, faint, paternal, proud. "You've done beautifully. The children will remember your lesson." The shuttle drifted back into darkness, and in the reflection of their blood-spattered goggles, the reagent thought they saw the mannequins still dancing. The tunnel widened into a mechanical mouth, a vast grinding pit, surrounded by rusted gears and spinning blades. The walls were painted with murals of smiling children being cleansed. The reagent's hands shook as they pushed the duck boat closer. "Almost there," Gooseberry sang, her voice trembling with joy. "You've been such good helpers. Now let's finish the lesson." Then the air split open, a Murkoff door slammed open with a flash of light, and Mother Gooseberry emerged. Her cleaver gleamed in the red light, her head twitching, porcelain cracking further with every shriek. "Bad children, you ruined my party. Y'all ruin everything," she charged. The reagent ducked, weaving through twisted machinery as the grinder's teeth began to turn. The duck boat tipped forward, the mannequins sliding toward the blades. Sparks flew, screams mechanical, human, overlapping filled the chamber. The grinder consumed the boat, tearing the mannequins apart in a spray of plastic and blood. Mother Gooseberry screamed, stumbling back, covering her ears. "My children, my beautiful babies." The grinder jammed, split open metal, bursting outward. The reagent didn't wait. They sprinted back through the tunnels, through the fun park's broken rides, the lights now flickering wildly as alarms blared. Behind them, Gooseberry's laughter turned into sobs, then static. They burst through the front gates, lungs burning, and saw the shuttle waiting, its door yawning open like salvation. They climbed aboard, the doors sealed. The music of Futterland still echoed faintly, the carousel melody now a funeral dirge. Easterman's voice came one last time, calm, proud. "Good work, my child. You've cleansed the wicked. Soon you will be free." The shuttle drifted into the void once more. And as the reagent stared into the reflection of their night vision lenses, they saw the faintest image, a duck boat, still floating, still full of smiling faces, waiting for its next trip down Route Canal. The shuttle hissed open to the sound of rain and sirens. Ahead loomed a courthouse, its marble steps cracked, its facade scrawled with slogans like "Truth is treason and guilt is grace." Floodlights pulsed through the mist, cutting brief glimpses of police tape and broken statues. Inside, the corridors were a graveyard of bureaucracy, overturned benches, moldy files, and portraits of judges with their eyes scratched out. A loudspeaker blared to life. "Welcome back, my little jury," Easterman's voice crooned. "Today, you will learn how to serve Justice Murkoff's way." The reagent stepped into the lobby, boots squelching through standing water. At the far end, the courtroom doors were sealed by a metal gate. Through the bars, they could see Leland Coyle, towering over a corpse. He ground his heel into the dead reagent's chest, eyes gleaming. "The accused will meet her fate," he hissed, voice bubbling with static and rage. "No one escapes judgment." Then he vanished into the shadows. The reagent turned away, the main path blocked, and entered the library. The air was thick with dust. Towers of law books formed labyrinthine walls, pages fluttered as if breathing. Somewhere between the shelves, something laughed. Ex-pups lurked here, failed reagents, wandering in circles, muttering fragments of old testimony. The reagent crept past them, pushing through the maze until a faint light guided them to a hidden corridor. At its end, a heavy wooden door marked courtroom access. A single button switch waited beside it. The reagent pressed it. The lights in the courtroom flared. A mechanical groan echoed through the building. Cutscene. The reagent emerged into the courtroom's gallery. Benches lined with mannequins, judges, lawyers, and spectators, all frozen mid. Gavel strike. At the front, a robed figure presided over an empty witness stand. A single spotlight illuminated the judge's desk. The reagent approached, opening the door to the right. Inside, an evidence room reeking of disinfectant and rot. On the table, a sealed evidence box. When the reagent pressed the switch beside it, A UV light hummed to life, glowing symbols appeared, forming a triangular code. The puzzle, the mind conditioning, the obedience test. They traced the pattern, input the sequence. The lock clicked open, inside a decapitated head, its mouth sewn shut with metal wire. "Excellent," Easterman whispered through the intercom. "Justice begins with the truth, and truth begins with silence. Take it to the fountain." The reagent carried the head into the marble courtyard, where a dry fountain waited. The statue in its center depicted Lady Justice blindfolded, weeping rust. They dropped the head into the basin. The gate behind them rumbled open. Inside the next chamber, a corroded acid bucket waited. The reagent lifted it, the fumes burning their lungs, and returned to the fountain. Pouring the acid, they watched the water hiss, turn black, and dissolve the flesh to bone. "Well done," Easterman said softly. "Erase the lies. The evidence must never stand in the way of faith." Two more gates rose, revealing deeper offices and evidence storage rooms, more boxes, more UV codes. More grotesque relics, severed hands clutching gavels, tongues nailed to court records, the remnants of witness, is long corrected. Each offering went into the fountain. Each bucket of acid hissed louder than the last. When the final artifact dissolved, the loudspeaker crackled again. "The evidence has been cleansed. Let us now purify the witnesses." Back in the courtroom, a new cutscene began. The lights dimmed. Spotlights flared on two glass containment chambers, each housing a trembling figure. "The witnesses," Easterman's voice dripped with delight. "Truth is dangerous when left unchecked. Silence them, my child." The reagent entered the left chamber and found a small microwave trigger. When activated, the chamber filled with light, and the witness began to convulse, his head exploding in a shower of crimson mist. The screams cut off abruptly. "Good," Easterman cooed. "Now find the others." The next objective appeared, the tracker. The reagent picked it up, a handheld scanner, blinking toward the surviving witnesses. One hid among the library's shredded law books, whispering confessions to no one. The other upstairs, trembling beneath a portrait of Easterman himself. Each one begged, each one died. When both were silenced, the reagent's earpiece clicked. "Justice is blind, my child, but judgment must be seen." Returning to the courtroom, the reagent found the judge, the same robed mannequin, now bound to an electric execution rig. Wires snaked from his chair to two massive crank boxes in the back of the hall. Coyle's laughter echoed overhead. "You think you can play God? Malkoff made you his tools." The doors burst open. The reagent sprinted into the rear chambers, one crank to the left, one to the right, and began turning them. The machinery screamed, sparks flew, Coyle's heavy footsteps thundered closer, his voice rising in rage. "You're all guilty. Every last one of you." He smashed through the walls, tearing down shelves, swinging a rusted pipe. The reagent ducked and cranked faster, every rotation feeding power to the execution rig. "Faster," Easterman urged. "Justice waits for no one." When both cranks reached their limit, a klaxon blared. The judge's chair lit up. Electricity surged. The mannequin convulsed, melting into black ash. The gavel on. The desk fell, striking once. Silence. The courtroom doors burst open. Coyle screamed, "Pot beast, pot man," voice filled with static, and lunged. The reagents didn't look back. They sprinted through the courthouse lobby, through the halls of law and ruin, into the cold rain outside. The shuttle awaited, lights cutting through the fog. They climbed aboard, doors sealed, engines roared. "Justice has been served," Easterman's voice murmured. "You've proven your faith. Soon, you will be reborn." The shuttle vanished into the dark sky. And as the reagent sat motionless, the reflection in their lens, showed the courthouse burning behind them, the scales of justice finally balanced, dripping red. The shuttle doors opened to a wash of pink neon and distorted laughter. Ahead stood the toy factory, a monstrous parody of innocence. Glittering letters spelled Futterland Industries, flickering between slogans, "Pleasure for all ages." Education through sensation. Televisions bolted to the walls blared looping ads featuring Dr. Futterman, his voice syrupy and grotesque. "Love is learning, my friends. Let's play with our feelings until they are all used up." Mannequins in lab coats danced with plush toys whose painted eyes seemed to follow the reagent as they stepped into the parking lot. The air smelled of melted plastic and burnt sugar. Easterman's voice cut through the static. There is rot hiding beneath the laughter. Find the deviant, expose his corruption, and make him clean again. The reagent approached the main doors locked, sealed from within. A faint voice called out from the basement vents below, "Hey, down here, I've got the key, just let me out, yeah." "I can help you." The reagent descended into the basement, lit only by red emergency lights. Machinery groaned in the dark. A trash compactor dominated the center of the room, rusted, dripping. Inside, a half-naked man squirmed, his skin slick with grease and fear. "Please, I just wanted to make toys." They said it was wrong. His voice cracked into laughter, then sobbing. "The key's mine, let me out and I'll give it to you." The reagent stared, motionless. Easterman's whisper slithered through the earpiece, "Mercy corrupts discipline." Waste must be compacted. Conveyor belts rumbled to life. Trash boxes lined the room, stained, heavy. The reagent began hauling them to the input slots, one by one, as a grunt prowled the corridors, bellowing through a torn clown mask. Each box dropped into the compactor, drew a scream from within. The metal walls creaked, closing tighter. The man begged, choked, wept. Finally, the crushing sound wet, final. The machine hissed, and the crushed body slumped to stillness. Among the pulp of flesh and wire, a blood-stained key dropped free. The reagent picked it up. Easterman's tone was warm, almost proud. "Good child, obedience requires sacrifice. Proceed to the factory floor." The door unlocked with a mechanical sigh. Inside, the toy factory stretched like a cathedral of perversion, conveyor belts carrying half-formed dolls, wax molds of human parts, and chrome instruments that hummed softly. At the far end, on a suspended platform, hung the deviant naked, shivering, shackled to the production line. Spotlights flared on, a recorded voice echoed from the speakers, "Welcome to the Futterland pleasure process. Let's make a better man." The first terminal glow day. A foreman's key was needed, hidden upstairs in control room A. The reagent ascended into a maze of offices while expop workers stumbled through the halls, their faces painted with grins, their flesh stapled into smiles. The correct key was found beside a projector looping images of bouncing cartoon hearts. A television flickered to reveal the needed input, a box of wax marked with the number 4. The reagent searched the storage room, dragging the crate onto the conveyor belt. On the factory floor, the deviant cried out, "Please, no. It's too hot, I'll do anything." The button was pressed. Wax poured like molten gold, coating his skin until he became a statue, featureless, gleaming, silent. Easterman's voice cooed, "The flesh must be sealed before it can be purified." The upper floors unlocked. Control rooms B and C awaited, and with them, greater cruelty. In room B, the reagent retrieved the second key from a locker in the break room, the walls plastered with Futterman's smiling face. The broadcast screens displayed the next ingredient, a toy box stamped with the logo "For adults only." Feeding it into the next machine activated a grinding of gears and a scream that curdled the air. Metallic arms descended from the ceiling, slicing and grafting, mutilating. The deviant's voice broke into wet gurgles before going still. When the machine stopped, his body was misshapen, a mannequin parody of desire. Then came Station C. The reagent found the final key in the design office, next to sketches of obscene figurines. The screen displayed a lubricant box, marked with a smiling cartoon baby. Once inserted, the third machine whirred to life. Tubes filled with bubbling chemicals sprayed across the deviant's form, blistering flesh and tearing skin. "You see," Easterman whispered, "sin must be sterilized before rebirth." The conveyor belts carried the twitching remains onward. At the end of the production line, the reagent reached the warehouse. A massive crank loomed in the center, connected to a switchboard of rusted levers. Turning it redirected the belts toward a single destination, the incinerator. The deviant's body rolled inside like another defective toy. A mechanical voice announced, "Disposal process initiated. Please supply gas." The reagent followed the maze of pipes into the basement. Expops roamed here, their eyes glowing through the dark. The reagent turned valve after valve, the air filling with the hiss of gas. Then footsteps. Mother Gooseberry emerged from a Murkoff door, her porcelain mask glistening with soot. "You naughty little ones," she sang, "burning your toys before bedtime." She stalked the aisles, humming, dragging her cleaver along the metal floor. The reagent slipped past, heart pounding, and reached the gas pump. They pressed the switch. The incinerator roared to life. Flames erupted, reflected in the waxy eyes of the deviant. He screamed once, a sound too human, before the fire swallowed him. The reagent watched through the observation glass as plastic and flesh fused into ash. Easterman's voice returned, tender as a lullaby. "Now the lesson is complete. The deviant has been corrected. Desire purified. You may leave, my good child." The alarms blared. Sprinklers rained ash and boiling water. Gooseberry shrieked somewhere behind, the walls echoing with laughter and song. The reagent ran through corridors of melting toys, through showers of burning wax, back to the parking lot where the shuttle waited. The doors sealed, the engines screamed. As the toy factory burned behind them, the reagent sat motionless, steam rising from their skin. On a nearby monitor, Easterman appeared once more, smiling. "You see now, my patient, there is no impurity, only unfinished work. Soon we will make you perfect." The screen flickered, static, silence. The shuttle hissed to a stop. The doors opened with a groan, exhaling steam into the sterile dark. The reagent stepped out, barefoot, breathing shallowly through cracked lips. The air was still too still, and the world smelled faintly of antiseptic and burnt paper. Before them loomed the mansion once again. Where it had all begun, its once. Flickering chandeliers now pulsed on and off at irregular intervals, throwing ghost-like shadows across the marble floors. The portraits on the walls, the same ones that once judged, mocked, and instructed, now stared blankly, their eyes hollowed out. Easterman's voice whispered through the intercom system, slow and rhythmic, almost reverent. "Welcome home, my patient. Your conditioning is almost complete. Deliver your new self to the world." The reagent moved through the halls, carrying boxes stacked with paperwork, names, numbers, identities. Each file was stamped with Murkoff employee record, complete with photographs of smiling strangers. They delivered them one by one to drop boxes labeled authority, order, and faith. Every deposit echoed through the mansion like a heartbeat. When the final box fell into place, Easterman's voice returned. "Good, your old life is gone. Now only your purpose remains." The lights flickered again, revealing the mansion's courtyard, now flooded with fog. Two corpses lay slumped against the fountain, keys glinting in their rigid hands. The reagent knelt, prying them free. The skin tore easily like paper. Unlocking the basement doors, they descended into a maze of wires, screens, and static. A message scrawled across the walls in dripping paint read, "Hear the words, see the words." 3 frequency machines waited in the darkness, each tuned to chaos. The reagent turned the knobs, searching through bursts of static and screaming until the voices became clear. Spider Eye Lamb, each word echoed through the holes, accompanied by the thudding steps of X-Bop, distorted survivors from earlier trials, lurching from the shadows, their goggles gleaming green. In the dark, the reagent fought past them, bleeding, half, blind, driven by the rhythmic mantra of the machines. At the mansion's edge stood a small house, overgrown with cables. Inside, a dead generator waited. Near the den, a gas can rested beside a corpse burned down to bone. The reagent lifted it, pouring its contents into the generator's tank. The smell of fuel filled the air. The lights sputtered to life, powering a film projector in the nearby theater. Easterman's voice softened to a whisper. "You have heard, now you must see." The reagent found a film reel in the lobby, its metal case, etched with a single word, rebirth. They carried it to the projector and replaced the old reel. The machine stuttered, caught, and began to spin. The screen flickered to life. Images flashed distorted memories of the trials. Mother Gooseberry's mask smiling through flame. Coyle's eyes white with rage, the snitch convulsing in the chair, the deviant's silhouette in fire, then a blinding frame of white. "You are reborn, reach the world." The reagent stepped away from the screen, the sound of the projector echoing like a heartbeat. They moved through the mansion one last time, every hallway familiar yet foreign. The doors that were once locked now swung open freely. Through the main entrance, they crossed into a service corridor leading toward the shuttle bay, the shuttles now sealed, engines dead, their windows blackened. But to the left, a side door stood ajar, a sign above it read, "Employees only." The door creaked open. Darkness swallowed everything. When the reagent awoke, they were underwater. There was no panic, no thrashing, only stillness. The water was black and endless, and when they rose to the surface, there was no ceiling, no sky, just a vast ocean stretching forever, illuminated by a single white light in the distance. The reagent began to walk, each step rippling outward, the water rising to their chest, their throat. The light pulsed brighter. A low, blaring frequency filled the air, that same unbearable hum from the radio towers of Mount Massive. It rattled bone and memory alike. As they neared the light, their vision fractured flashes of every trial, every death, every scream bleeding together. Easterman's voice returned, faint, almost loving. "You have learned obedience. You have shed the self. You have become the message." The light engulfed them. The screen went white, then silence. Somewhere, a television flickered to life in an empty office. A news broadcast began, calm, professional, ordinary. A new anchor smiled to the camera. Their eyes glowed faintly green. White, not light white, endless, weightless. The reagent stood knee deep in the glowing water, the brightness swallowing the horizon. Every sound bled into one, a static hum that was neither mechanical nor natural. They took a step forward, or thought they did. The light surged, flaring like a flashbulb, until there was nothing but heat behind the eyes. A voice reached them through the static, muffled, like a memory caught in the walls. "You are reborn." The world inhaled, and everything went black. The reagent awoke with a gasp. They were lying on a bed, cheap, unmade, soaked in blood. Sunlight cut through broken blinds, striping the room in alternating bands of gold and shadow. Outside, faint music drifted up from the street, a salsa rhythm tangled in the distant hum of cars and conversation. The air smelled of salt and cigarettes. The reagent sat up, trembling, eyes darting across the room. A hotel peeling wallpaper, a half-empty glass of rum on the nightstand, a ceiling fan that ticked with every rotation. Their reflection in the mirror was someone else, the same face, the same eyes, but older, worn, wrong. Blood streaked their hands, their chest, the bedsheets. They touched their forehead and felt the cold ridges of the goggles, now half fused to their skull. Panic surged. The reagent stumbled to their feet, heart pounding. The room swam around them, photos on the wall, a travel brochure, reading Bienvenidos a la Habana, the window open to a bright blue sky and the red, white, and blue of the Cuban flag waving across the street. Then the phone rang, a rotary model, beige, sitting on a small table beside the bed, ringing. Ringing, relentless. The reagent stared at it, then, slowly, lifted the receiver. "Hello," the line crackled. Then a voice, calm, composed, impossibly familiar. "Spider." The reagent froze. Their breath hitched. The edges of their vision began to darken. Lamb, the world snapped. The phone slipped from their hand, clattering against the floor. Their vision narrowed to a tunnel of shaking light, heartbeats thundering in their ears, skin burning. The walls pulsed, warping with every breath. Through the window, the sunlight flickered, and within the reflection of the glass, a face appeared. Easterman, smiling, watching. "You see now, my child, the world is ready to learn." The reagent reached out, or maybe fell forward. The reflection smiled wider, black,